Hi everybody, good morning. My kids are busy working in the other room and might need my help, so I'm going to see if I can get my train of thought out here to you without too much distraction. We'll see how this goes. I recently put out a video where I talked about my morning routine, and at the end of that video I briefly talked about how my kids, let me shut this door so it's not so loud. I briefly talked about how my kids, how I give them freedom to kind of schedule their day as far as their independent schoolwork, that I just leave a checklist of what's required and then I let them make decisions about when they do those things, so that I'm teaching them self-sufficiency and independence. And I have gotten a lot of questions from people about that concept. So much so that I thought I needed to quickly hop on here and talk to you a little bit more about this, because I don't want to discourage anyone. And I feel like a few people who sent me messages felt discouraged that their kids weren't doing this. And I feel like maybe they kind of built it up in their minds a little more than it actually is, if that makes sense. Okay, I had to go help someone. I'm going to come back. I don't even remember where I left off, so I'm just going to dive into some of these questions that were left for me and just give you guys a quick answer. Do your kids do their schoolwork mostly independently? I would say it's about 50-50 is what I told her. About half of their work is done independently. The other half in the day we do as a group subject. So the main independent subjects are math. We use teaching textbooks, and so that is, there's a lecture and then questions online on the computer. So my 4 oldest do that. They do all of their English independently, so that's writing out their spelling, a spelling word. The thing that we've been doing lately, just for some extra practice, is I'm picking one word a day and they write that word 10 times. My older kids are writing it in cursive, so that is also cursive practice. So they're just focused on that one word that day, and then the next day they move on to the next word, and we're just doing it like that. They also do the Fix-It Grammar program, so that they do independently as well for English. They do independent reading, which I don't assign, they just do it naturally. That is independent. And if we happen to do a science experiment that week, I will leave the directions on the table and they will complete it independently and write a little summary of what happens. Of course, with any of these things, if they need my help, I'm always right here. One benefit to living in a small space is I am right here able to help my kids with any question they have, because we're all together. We're all together. Also, their Bible study, we're part of CBS Community Bible Study. And my older kids now can do their books independently. I still help my younger ones. We're studying the book of Isaiah this year, so it's a lot to chew on. And my younger kids definitely need my help with that. The older two can usually do it on their own. Sometimes we'll stop and discuss things. So those are the things that they can choose, that they can structure their day to decide. Today, Leo got up and did his math right away this morning, because I told him, I wrote out on my board that today is a strange kind of day because we're leaving at 2 o'clock for a chiropractor appointment. We don't usually have those in the middle of the day. It's just how it worked out. And then on Wednesday nights, my older kids get to volunteer at the local food pantry, which is something they really enjoy. So I said, in order for this to happen, to be able to go volunteer tonight, this is your list of things that need to get done today. It has their jobs, it has their self-care, and it has those subjects that I want them to complete. Just a few subjects independently. So he decided to get up right away this morning and crank that math out. I am there as an encouragement to them, and I often will remind him, Leo, your mind seems to do math best if you do it early in the day rather than later. When you wait till later, it seems like it's a little bit harder for you to get through. So I will help them with those kind of things. This is the teaching of how to help your kids govern themselves. You help them think through things in their mind with the goal that when they enter adulthood, they will be able to easily think through these things on their own, because they'll have heard my voice helping guide them during these years. So don't get frustrated that your kids aren't independent now, or that you feel like you have to constantly remind them of things. Don't view it as, wow, I have to keep nagging this kid. Instead, view it in a positive light. I have an opportunity in these years to speak into their minds, to help them learn how to structure their day to be most productive. or to look at what needs to be done and find the best way to arrange that. You are helping have an influence over them. One way that I do this with my younger set who are not independent yet. So I'm talking about my 8-year-old, she's kind of, moving in that direction of making those decisions on her own. A lot of it depends on the personality of the child. But for my 6 and 4-year-old, no, they're too little to just be handed their schoolwork, obviously. They don't have much anyway at those ages. But I will say, to start this thought process in their mind, what I will say to them is, would you like to read to me, or would you like to do this, spelling word? I have my 6-year-old write out spelling word too. Would you like to do the spelling word first, or would you like to read to me first? So that's putting the choice on him. That's the first step to helping your child learn independence, is by offering them choices that they can be independent within the parameters that you're setting for them. And then slowly, as they get older, you widen those parameters so that they have more responsibility for the decisions. So for my 11, he'll be 12 pretty soon, a couple months. So for my almost 12-year-old and 13-year-old, they are much more independent because they have had a few years now of me guiding them through this process. So my 13-year-old, she really prefers to get outside in the mornings, to work in the chicken coop or whatever project she's working on. She's very hands-on. Do you need my help with something? You doing okay?
I'm just showing you my answer.
Wow, that is such a complicated way to get to the answer, but you like doing it that way, huh?
Yeah, it's fun.
She likes doing it the complicated way instead of just, the boring addition. She likes to make it. That's just how your brain works. Okay, get back to it. Type it in. Elsie's doing her math right now. So I make myself available that at any time they can ask me a question if they need help. Now, another question was, how do you keep your kids from getting distracted? Well, I know this is hard for me to keep from getting distracted, so I definitely have compassion on my kids who are easily distracted. And some of them, like for math, for example, some of my kids can get on there, go all the way through. They hardly need me to say a word to them. Others will do a few problems, and then it's like, ooh, squirrel, They'll see something happening, they'll see something going by, suddenly they're starting to wander off from the math that they were working on. Their brains are still more easily distracted, and I can understand that. So instead of getting angry with them, or, trying to, just show them disapproval, what I try to do is just help them refocus. I mean, again, we're in the training stages. So you're trying to help your child refocus. So, what problem are you on? I'll start with kind of like open-ended questions like, how's it going with your math? Oh yeah, math, I was doing math, Or do you need my help with that next question? Or it's just something to kind of give them the initial, hey guys, you're supposed to be doing math right now, without saying, sit down, you're supposed to be doing math. Because that's just the, that's the rude way to say it. So instead, I try to think of a way to get their mind back on track with what they're doing without being, without just showing frustration toward them. That's my goal. So, some of them do best if I'm physically sitting next to them. I have one child who for months went through this stage that I literally needed to be physically sitting next to them, or they would kind of, not just get distracted, but kind of panic a little bit because it was a lot of new concepts they were going through. So I would gather whatever I needed to work on, and I would physically plant myself in the chair next to that child so that I am there if they need me to walk them through every problem, or if they just need my reassurance that I'm there and they can ask a question quickly. No problem. I can do that. How's it going?
A stitch. Here, don't move. I'm putting this on.
Oh, you made me an earring.
Ooh,
a herring.
A hearing. I get it. A hearing.
Thank you. Isn't that fancy? Ow. Okay, so distraction. Yeah, you're going to have to teach your kids to stay on target, because there are a few kids who can do it naturally.
And who has an earring.
It's not the norm. It's not the norm. You like the earring? Okay, here is another question that I got. How do you motivate your kids? Are there consequences for not finishing or reward system for finishing? I think consequences and rewards are a natural part of life that will continue as long as we live. We are rewarded with paychecks, where we are rewarded with, we do self-rewards, like, you know what, I'm going to work hard on this, and then I'm going to sit and put my feet up. So this is a natural part of life. Good job, Elsie. Yeah, good job. You're doing good. Keep going. What question are you on?
I don't remember. I'll tell you.
Okay. So I don't mind at all of using rewards, a reward system or a natural consequence system for my children, because I just think it's part of the framework of our life. Natural rewards vary from season to season. So right now we are in the middle of winter here, and it's cold. My kids don't go play outside like they do in the nicer weather, where they will be out for hours. And so I allow them to do more computer time in the winter. It gets dark really early here, and so somewhere around 4 or 4:30, I'll let them have some time on the computer doing something constructive and educational, not just like time wasters every night. We don't sit and play video games, nothing like that, but they'll do things like they like to do, my older son likes to do coding, where he codes his own simple games. Some of them are typing, so they'll, can freely type a story, or they'll do, try making a picture in Photoshop, or, look at Google Earth, whatever, just things like that they can do. Or they could watch a show. Some of my younger ones are really into Wildcrats and things like that. So that all can happen during that time if, and this is where the reward system comes in, if they have completed all of their tasks for the day. So I try to make things very reasonable. I don't want to make my kids dread learning, so I never put more on that list than is reasonable for them to do. I also want my kids to have plenty of free time, because during their free time they have the opportunity to explore their own interests. So I don't want to schedule my kids up so much that they don't have that time. How did it go? So that's how we're doing it right now during the winter months. If they want to have that free computer time, or to be able to watch a show for that hour, they need to be finished with everything on their list, their jobs, self-care, and schoolwork, or whatever else it is that I put on that list. And so, of course, then the natural consequence would be, if you're not done, then I'm going to help you finish up at this time. Now you've decided to delay it, so now's the time to sit down and finish it before dinner. Occasionally, like I said about my daughter, how she really likes to spend her time outdoors in the mornings, she will do her schoolwork in the afternoon. And there have been a few times where she did not complete a math lesson or something, and so we do our structured school Monday through Thursday. On Fridays we go to our Bible study classes somewhere else, and then Friday afternoon is a time that she could make up any of those things that she needs to. Or also she's part of a horse group that gives assignments. So sometimes Friday afternoons she will be writing an assignment for that group. So that I have reserved that time if needed, but I would prefer for everybody to get done with what they need to that day, because it's totally reasonable. It's not too much work. It's not too much. If your kids are really, really giving a hard time, dreading their school time, whatever it may be, Samuel left his light on. This is Samuel's bunk bed behind me, so that's where I'm sitting. It's quiet in here. If they're really, really just dreading and fighting you a lot, I would stop and reassess what you're asking them to do. Is this the best way they learn? Some of my kids don't do well with a lot of sit down and write kind of work, and they need to learn in a different way, and that's the beauty of homeschooling. So you need to reassess what you're asking your child to do. Perhaps you're asking them something that isn't what is best for them at that time. Maybe you need to pause a subject and wait a year until they have time to mature and then teach it. Or maybe you need to change things up. We were having a lot of resistance about math, and that's why we switched to teaching textbooks, and it went much better. Work with your child. You don't have to think of yourself as being in a traditional school setting where, this is what I picked at the beginning of the year, so this is what we're going to do every day for this school year. That is not how homeschooling has to be. You are encouraging your child to love learning and to really grow in those areas that are going to serve them best as adults with whatever profession they choose. And so you do need to stay sensitive to your child and not burden them with a bunch of busy work That's not the goal here. The goal is to create people who love learning so much that they want to do it on their own even after the homeschooling years are over. Okay, so I've got another question that was about how do you make your children do chores or whatever they need to do without constantly nagging and reminding. This seems to be a common theme of questions. How do you manage to teach them to be independent, to do their school and chores without the nagging? I totally understand. I feel like on and off I have struggled with nagging, not wanting to be a nagging mom, but not knowing how to not be that. And part of it, like I told this mom, part of it is just your kids are going to grow up. And as you practice independence over time, they're going to get it. They're not going to get it right away, especially if this is something new to them. You're going to have to give it some years. And I am seeing the fruit of it now with my almost 12-year-old and my 13-year-old. I'm seeing that fruit of them knowing, okay, this is what's expected of me today and this is what I need to do one way or the other. I'm starting to see that fruit now. We've been working on it for a few years. So a lot of it is lowering your expectations, knowing that your kids are not going to be independent as soon as you would like them to be, probably. And to readjust your mind to think, I am teaching them how to do this. I am helping them learn this. So that's a big part of it. I also told her that checklists are really helpful for my kids. Make sure you have something that they can check off so that they know when they're finished. Kids like to have that, just like adults. It helps to have a visual of this is what I need to do. Okay, I'm done with that. I'm done with that. I'm done with that. Kind of gives them an accomplishment to keep them going. If I have a child that's really having a hard time that day, I'll encourage them to start with something really easy. Like writing out those spelling words. That's something that they can do, and it's like, hey, look, you've done one thing already. Check that off. And also kind of the reason that I write out a new checklist for each day, and I used to use a printed checklist, but now I write out a new checklist for the family each day because I, as a mom, have discernment to kind of know, you know what, we had a really late night last night. They probably are going to be lagging today. Instead of this much independent work, I'm only going to write like 2 things up there, and then we're going to spend some more time read alouds as a family, or we're going to do our art time today or something more interesting. Yes, sweetie?
Is my time supposed to be done by now?
Yeah, it's almost done. I'm almost finished here, and then I'll come out and switch you over. Okay, and I also, could you play with James? There you go, thank you. I'm almost done. The other thing that I talked about is I read a lot about Charlotte Mason's her learning style, and one thing that really stood out to me that she said is that you with your child should work on one habit at a time. Learn one habit, and I'll have to go back and look, but I think she said for 6 weeks at least you only work on one habit. And that could be as simple as, I want you to turn off the light when you leave this room. So for 6 weeks, that's the only thing you work on. And you make sure that every time they leave the room, you are making sure they turn that light off, or turn the light off, turn the light off, turn the light off. And that if you work on one thing at a time, it's going to be so firmly embedded in their mind that it becomes a habit. You won't have to remind them about that anymore. But you have to be completely consistent during that 6 weeks, is what she said in her writings. It's been years ago that I read this. So let's say you want your child to be able to do a morning job each day without you having to nag and nag and nag and nag. So you're going to pick this one habit. So everything else in their life, you're going to kind of, help them and make it easy. But that one habit you're going to be consistent with. So you're going to get up and you're going to be like, we're going to do our morning job. We're going to do our morning job. And each morning, that's the one thing that you really help them to do joyfully. And you really, you did a great job. Wow, you did that without complaining. You did. Okay, that's fine. Give them that positive affirmation. Just work on that one thing. Don't try to change your whole life after you watch a video of someone, like maybe you watch my morning routine. You're like, well, that's it. We haven't been doing it this way, but we are going to do everything independent starting now. That's not realistic. Yeah, that's kind of like those January 1st goals that people are like, starting today, I'm going to go to the gym every day. I'm going to eat healthy foods. I'm not going to have desserts. as humans, we just can't do everything at once. We have to ease ourselves into good habits slowly, and it's the same with your kids. So if you're wanting to make big changes, pick one thing and really encourage them, and in a positive way, help them to make that one good thing a good habit before you move on to another thing. And in the long run, you're going to have better success. They are going to have better success and better confidence because they will feel like, I did it. You gave them one small thing to learn and they learned it.